The first major vagrancy law was passed in 1349. What's that? That's 64 years ago. 654 years ago, to increase the workforce following the Black Death by making idleness, that is unemployment, an offense. By the 1500s, the statuses were mainly used as a means of controlling criminals. In the 16th and 17th century in England, a vagrant was a person who could work but preferred not to, or could not find employment. I mean, as if there's no distinction there. You know, he either preferred not to, in other words, he chose to be lazy. They're lumping them up with the person that couldn't find work. You see the insanity, the duplicity here? So, took to the road in order to do so, or one who begs for a living. So if you are so poor and you can't find work that you're actually begging for help, you're a criminal. Vagrancy was illegal, punishable by branding, whipping, conscription into the military, or at times penal transportation to penal colonies. Vagrants were different from impotent poor, who were unable to support themselves because of advanced age or sickness, however. However, the English laws usually did not distinguish between the impotent poor and the criminal, so both received the same harsh punishment. In 1824, earlier vagrancy laws were consolidated in the Vagrancy Act of 1824, UK, whose main aim was removing undesirables from public view. Undesirables was not even in quotations. Can you imagine the gall? From public view. The act assumed that homelessness was due to idleness. It assumed, because it wanted to assume, that homelessness was due to idleness, and thus deliberate, and made it a criminal offense to engage in behaviors associated with extreme poverty. The Poor Law was the system for provision of Social Security in operation in England and Wales from the 16th century until the establishment of the welfare state in the 20th century. So the poor, obviously, folks, have always been oppressed. And then they bring in a little welfare, they throw a few crumbs. This is the let them eat cake mentality and get you dependent and get you to kiss the ground. These elitists that are causing your problems throw you. These few crumbs that these elitists, hypocrites, throw you is how they're buying your votes and buying your approval. When they're the ones that made you dependent. You understand, folks? By price fixing, by manipulating markets and not allowing the public to have just simple sound currency, whereby everybody's wealth would increase incrementally, gradually over time. This is what happens in a true free market supply and demand system. It's the rising tide lifts all ships principle. If the wealth of the planet increases, the wealth of the citizens of the planet should increase. Am I making any sense here, folks? In the United States, it goes on, in colonial America, if a person wandered into a town and did not find work, he or she was told to leave town or be persecuted, that is, right? In the United States, vagrancy laws were vague. You think that was by accident? No, folks, that's the way they want it. They want it vague so they can do whatever they want under law, you know? You pay their false idol bail, and you can commit as many crimes as you want, you know? That's basically what it amounts to. Our system has slowly and gradually been completely imbued, overtaken with evil. We're vague and covered up a wide range of activities and crimes associated with vagrants, such as loitering, prostitution. Notice how prostitution is lumped in with this, you know, and drunkenness. And associating with known criminals. Under the vagrancy laws, police arrested people, of course, by force at the point of a gun, the threat of violence, and confinement. People were suspected of crime, but who had not committed a crime. Eventually, punishments were changed to a fine. Can you imagine? They're going to charge somebody a fine, right? That has no money. I mean, that's insanity. But yet, that's our system. It's filled with insanity. It's completely sick and just, it's hopeless. We need a complete reset of reality, folks. Continuing. After the United States Civil War, the South passed black codes, laws that tried to control freed black slaves. Vagrancy laws were included in these codes. Unemployed black Americans were arrested and fined as vagrants. Usually the person could not afford the fine and so was sent to county labor or hired out to a private employer. In the United States of the 1960s, vagrancy laws were found to be too broad and vague and in violation of the due process requirements of the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. I wonder who found that. Could it be the upright among us? They're the only thing holding back the total tide of destruction of our nation, is the decent and the upright among us. As citizens were not informed of which behaviors were illegal, police had too much power in deciding whether or not to arrest someone. Vagrancy laws could no longer violate freedom of speech.